Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Susan Schofer. I'm a partner here at SOSV on the HAX team and also Chief Science Officer for HAX. We're going to just start off with some quick introductions to the folks on this call, and then we'll give you a little bit of an overview of HAX just to set the baseline here. Who is SOSV and who is HAX? We'll hear a bit about how we work with companies from our wonderful founders who have joined us. And then we'll talk about what is HAX Plasma Forge, the new space that we're launching very soon. And then at the end, we'll take questions. So feel free to put your questions into the chat or into the Q&A space. And we will go through those and answer those as they come. So perhaps I'm already speaking. I'll give you a quick introduction to myself. As I mentioned, I'm a partner here at SOSV on the HAX team and Chief Science Officer for HAX. I've been here at SOSV now for about 3.5 years. I was part of the team that really got us started here in New Jersey and built our site here in Newark, which is where our HAX headquarters is. My background before that, I spent about 15 years of my career in industry, commercializing new technologies, really understanding what is the journey as you try to take innovative science and technology and bring it from the lab to the market. So I had a bunch of experience doing that in Silicon Valley and then a number of years doing that here in the New York City area at a biomaterials company. And originally before that, I started my career by getting a PhD in chemistry um, at the same esteemed institute as Carlos here on the call at Caltech. And so coming out of that, I was really, it was exciting for me to get into industry. And I learned very quickly that, it takes a lot more than the best technology and perhaps being the smartest person in the room to be able to take something and commercialize it. So I've been understanding what that journey looks like for my whole career. And I'll hand it over to G, another partner on our team.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. My name is G. I'm the CTO and partner in the firm. I've been here for 8 years, and I lead the engineering team that work with our companies on a daily basis. Okay, Sean?
Okay, it's my turn. So, hello everyone. Great to meet you all. So, my name is Sean Jen, CEO and the co-founder of Princeton Critical Minerals, or PCM. So, we are a Princeton University spin-out that focus on building innovative solutions to extract lithium ions from both conventional and more emergent U.S. domestic lithium resources. So a little bit about myself. So my background was in water chemistry. I'm also a material scientist myself, PhD from Berkeley and then Princeton. So technology was initially built up at Princeton. We joined HAX in 2023, and so it's about 2 years time. And then it has been a whole lot of a great journey, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about it. And to you, Dr. Carlos.
Uh, Thank you, Sean. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Susan and Max, for inviting me to be part of this panel. I'm Carlos Romero Talamas. I'm the CEO of TerraFusion, and I'm also a professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the University of Maryland, College Park, where we have the second iteration of the machine that our spin-off company, TerraFusion, is based on. Uh, I have my undergraduate degree in engineering physics, a master's in space studies from the International Space University in Strasbourg, France, a master's in aeronautics from Caltech, and my PhD is actually in mechanical engineering from Caltech because I was interested in space propulsion, but then I switched to fusion energy when I learned about fusion during my plasma physics class, and I've never looked back. And so I'm happy to be working in plasma physics, happy to have spun out TerraFusion and be working on it, and of course, happy to have received the support from PAX.
Awesome. Thank you guys for that. And I think now we were going to present a few slides, just giving everyone on the call a baseline of, who is SOSV and HAX before we go into a bit of a discussion with everyone here. Awesome. So, oops, lost the Zoom. Um, so we're going to talk a bit about HAX Plasma Forge, but we'll start out with the next slide here talking about what is SOSV. So at SOSV, we're investors into early stage companies within deep tech. We initially start out by writing checks pre-seed at the pre-seed stage of companies. Often we're the first check. We are often called the first check in deep tech, and that's for a reason because we're super active at that pre-seed stage. We're currently investing out of our fifth fund. It's a $306 million fund, and in total, the firm has over 1.5 billion assets under management. Um, we invest uniquely through our two different programs that we run. One is IndieBio, more focused on life sciences and biotech. And then the other one, really represented here today, is HAX. At HAX, we're focused on hard tech. And we have a very unique approach to investing and supporting companies. Really, because we invest at such an early stage, we're very comfortable with a lot more technical risk than many other investors. And we really want to be very hands on and work closely with our companies to help them be able to develop quickly, iterate quickly, go faster, and de risk their technology. And we at Hacks love hard tech. We've invested in over 500 hard tech startups over the years. Images of many of them are shown here. I'll highlight a couple. One in the plasma space, actually on the lower left, the second from the lower left is Y Plasma. They're developing plasma actuators. That are able to do on-chip cooling and have a number of other applications. So they're one of the companies that are actually using applications of plasma to be able to do some pretty cool technology and solve some big problems in the world. Another company that I'll highlight here is on the right in the middle, which is Smartex. This is a company that's actually using some computer vision to be able to detect errors in textile production in real time, which saves a ton of waste and energy and water down the road because if you have these errors and they propagate, you create a lot of waste. So they're able to really see that in real time and be able to correct that as they go. Um, Final company I'll highlight here that's one of our portfolio companies is Neptune Robotics in the middle row on the left. They've developed what basically looks like a Roomba to clean the hull of ships. So ships accumulate biomass and that creates a huge amount of drag which makes them a lot less fuel efficient. So by being able to clean them robotically, that actually improves their fuel efficiency by as much as 30%. Go to the next slide. So Hacks is a truly hands-on VC. We invest really early and our team co-develops. So we have a team of engineers here led by G, and it's actually a global team that works closely with the companies we invest in. And that allows us to iterate very quickly and to do a lot of trials and make more prototypes fast. And in doing so, we're able to help accelerate what usually might take a month as you're building hard tech and shrink that down to about a week. So what do we do? Ultimately, we take scientists and engineers and help turn them into founders, and we help take research and concepts and bring those out into the world to reality. How do we do that? We do that by investing our first check into companies of about up to 500K, and we provide deep technical help. So we have a chemistry lab here in Newark. We have an engineering team. We have a team that helps with design, and we have our team working closely that helps with business development, go-to-market strategy, how these startups should even build their teams, and we're really a hands-on partner. And with that, perhaps we'll pause in this part of the discussion to kind of engage with our founders who are here on the call today, Carlos and Sean. And we have a few questions for you. So, first off, maybe just you talked about it a bit, but maybe each of you, starting with Sean, can tell us a bit about your company, what you're developing, and perhaps how you got started.
Right. Thank you, Susan. As I mentioned, so Princeton Minerals is a startup that building a platform technology that trying to accelerate the production of lithium ions or some of the other critical minerals from the U.S. domestic like resources. We're really trying to bridge the gap between the supply and the demand. Um, so so where we got started, talks about my personal kind of experience. I initially worked in the water industries, and then worked a lot with membrane based technologies for desalination purposes. And then started to realize that there are a lot of very valuable minerals that is within the salt. People are really desperate to actually get rid of when doing the desalination purpose. And quickly enough, we started to build up technologies that will be able to separate really valuable salts out of those kind of concentrated brine, and then valorize it. So that's become the scientific kind of foundation of what makes PCM's product today. So so far, PCM have actually developed several different kind of product lines. We have gone through several large-scale pilots, and we have went into a commercial sale stage. All of that was achieved within about 2 years when we started to collaborate with HAX. Definitely, there are a lot of great learnings, and then we have been, greatly supported by the wonderful team at HAX, coming from all different aspects. For example, I really wanted to talk about why this space is a right fit for us, because we essentially is developing a chemical process to extract ions from liquid-based resources. But then the technology was initially validated in the lab with just the beakers and the small pumps. But to actually really go to industrial demonstration, we need a much larger system that will require industrial standard kind of equipment, and then large scale kind of buildups, like control system electronics that really goes beyond our initial kind of a capability. So what HAX provided is I'll say the initial guidance on how we can build up a large scale kind of a product to enable the great chemical process or the material science that we have built up within the lab. So that really helped us. At the same time, the great support in the global supply chain really accelerated our pathway from, like say, like an MVP to a real commercial product. So I think and we have been really grateful for that kind of support, and then we are almost one of the first Princeton spin out that joined HAX about 2 years ago, and now I'm really excited to see that HAX is actually building a plasma forge together with Princeton, basically the PPPL, and then at the same time, Princeton University in this year's the entrepreneurial system ecosystem has been developing very quickly, and we are very fortunate and honored to actually witness and experiencing this change, and then we are so glad to be part of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. I know everyone's here to hear about plasma, so now we'll hear a brief intro to what Carlos and team are building, which is based on plasma, and then we'll go into more description and an overview of what's going to go on at HAX Plasma Forge. But Carlos.
Yes, thank you, Susan. So I started again as a graduate student in doing plasma physics on a configuration called Spheromax, which is very different from what I'm doing now, but it's in the realm of magnetic confinement. And to get to the application, of course, is to confine very high temperature plasmas, about 10 times hotter than the center of the sun. And if you can do that, enough of that gas that turns into a plasma at that temperature for long enough, um, at that high enough temperature, then that's a recipe for fusion. And I used to work on a concept on that concept called Spheromax. That was part of my PhD thesis, and then my postdoctorate time at the Lawrence Livermore Lab. And then I was hired in 2008 to work at Maryland on the first iteration at the University of Maryland of what's called the centrifugal mirror. It's another type of magnetic confinement scheme, or magnetic bottle, if you will, to get to the recipe of thermonuclear fusion. The machine was designed to study the very basics of centrifugal confinement, that is, to see if the physics models work well enough. It did. It was a success. We ran it for milliseconds, but that is long enough to find out if it works actually. Um, the concept is actually not new. It's been around for a long time. But the first experiment between 2000 and 2010 at the University of Maryland, and then where I was hired toward the end of it, uh, was the biggest at the time, the best performing at the time. Um, at that time, actually in 2010, we were ready. We had proposed the next machine. We said we've learned a lot. This machine is very promising. It only took 10 years for ARPA-E to give us the funds, but finally in 2020 we got the award right as the pandemic started. So that was another challenge. But we built the machine, and now with superconducting coils, so we could have magnetic fields that are continuously on. In fact, they are day and night, even today. And we've been running the machine in steady state, just like you will run a reactor, but for seconds. And again, that's a lifetime in our field. And then that machine put us to the next level within 10% of what you will need for a commercial reactor. And once we achieved that, we knew it was time to spin out. And hence, we started looking for funding, incorporated TerraFusion, partnered with who is now my COO, Dr. Oliver Barham, and started looking for funds, and SOSV HAX believed in us, and we're very grateful for that. And so we've now hit the ground running thanks to SOSV HAX. And so it's we're very excited because it's a system, it's a confinement scheme that is much simpler than others that have been studied and that are being pursued by other startups in the fusion space. Excuse me. Um, and we're excited because we believe we can do it with much lower capital on a faster time scale, um, and get to small modular systems that can be iterated and improved again with a faster turnaround time, and of course deployed commercially, which is the ultimate goal. And so we're excited to do that. I'm of course very happy to be here, but it's nonstop, and it's always uh, new things, exciting. Not just the engineering work that we're doing, the science, but also meeting new people, investors, etc.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So now we'll, I think, go straight into a few more slides with that sort of stage set as to what we do and how we work with founders. The exciting news is that we're launching a new branch of HAX to be focused on plasma physics that will be built in Princeton, New Jersey, adjacent to Princeton Plasma Physics Lab. So I'll turn it over to G to speak a bit about what is HAX Plasma Forge and what is that going to be all about.
Okay. All right. Let me start with the first slide. What is plasma? I also feel like I'm the least qualified person on this, in this to talk about what, but let me give it a try. But in case you guys think this is I'm going wrong direction, please stop me. So, what is plasma? Well, plasma is a lot of folks say it's a fourth state of matter. It's actually the most abundant form of matter in the universe. We see it every day. If you look at the sky right now, you see the stars, and we also see like stuff like neon lights, plasma torches, and as Carl was mentioning, fusion reactors. It's the most dynamic form of energy that we can control, and plasma forms when gases are energized through heat, electricity, electromagnetic fields, etc. And then the energy are strips electron from the atoms and creating a soup of charged particles. And that's where it gives it plasma's ability to conduct electricity, generate electromagnetic fields, etc. And that leads to the unique properties which it becomes highly reactive, conductive, and tunable. I think the tunable part is the most exciting for us. It's most interesting and most exciting for us. And then that's great. We can use an analogy for this, right? Where think about electricity. Once we learn how to control and tune electricity, it's not just about um, you cannot see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen, but I think you need to make it a bit bigger or full screen right now.
Is this better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Apologies. Okay. Um, Let me change this. Okay. Yeah. So where was I? So The analogy is electricity. So the moment that we start able to control electricity, we're not just having light bulbs anymore, but we are really unlocking new industries, manufacturing, computing, communications, etc. And we believe that plasma is now at the same inflection point. By being able to tune the temperature, density, chemical composition, we can create controlled environments for entirely new reactions and materials. So we're no longer just studying plasma, we're engineering it as a foundation for the next generation of technologies. So that gets us, um, and a lot of industries are already using plasma fusion reactors, for example, and also Carl's previous studies in propulsion systems, Hall effect engines are quite a number of high specific impulse engines do use plasma as propulsion. Advanced materials, healthcare are all topics that is currently using plasma, and through Plasma Forge, we are hoping to tackle more of these industries by investing into early stage companies. Okay, but to make that transition from lab to market, we need more than good physics. We need an ecosystem that connects science, startups, and finances. That and to make this partnership happen, that's where HAX, PVPL, and NJDA come join together to create this kind of ecosystem. So you already know HAX. I'm going to go one by one, but you already know HAX. It's a we help commercializing the support, and then we're helping companies to prototype faster, to move faster, and commercialize faster. That's the venture catalyst for this bridge. PVPL is a Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. It is the top center for plasma and fusion research, and brings decades of expertise in plasma confinement, diagnostic, modeling. So we're very lucky to have PVPL as one of the partners to really ground our program in the real science rigor. And the last one is NJDA as being one of the pillars, the third pillar in this venture. And NJDA is the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and they provide all the framework to scale this through funding, infrastructure, public sector support. And then the goal is to turn this collaboration into a statewide plasma innovation cluster, and then eventually going to be a nationwide plasma innovation cluster. So with this collaboration coming in place, the HAX where the HAX Plasma Forge is the center of this Venn diagram, and as the three forces combined to turn plasma breakthroughs into real ventures. Okay, I like Venn diagrams, it's a little subtle, but the names changed. Now, so startups, plasma innovators, and global industry leaders serve as the tenants of this plasma forge, and this serves foundations of the plasma ecosystem. And then what we are trying to do is that these are the tenants to create this to make this vision real. So startups, obviously, bringing agility and innovation, and then the innovators bring depth, and into industries bring scale, and together we create this kind of reinforced cycle of plasma innovation. Right. So this is it for my slide, and I think the next is to continue the conversation with Carlos and Sean about how to continue this dialogue.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, so that's a bit about Plasma Forge. I think at this point we're open to answering questions from people. We already have a couple of questions in the chat, and maybe I'll go to one of the first ones, which is, asking. Someone's asking, they're a small business in New Jersey developing plasma technology for fusion and aerospace applications, and they're interested in learning more about Plasma Forge and how they can possibly participate in the HAX Plasma Forge. Who should they get in touch with? Uh, do we have a specific contact that we want to recommend that they use?
Are you? I assume you're asking how do you get in contact with to be part of the Plasma Forge? So that'll be one of us. We are or we're just in the final phases of securing a location right next to PVPL, being able to utilize their facilities, expertise, equipments, and then bringing in venture as well. So that'll be a location that's within. We cannot disclose the location yet, but it'll be within 5 minute drive from PVPL. That's the location we're looking at, and you can get in contact with us or go on to hacks.co for the contact information to submit your what you're working on, and then we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Um, Another question is, what is the expected timeline for Plasma Forge to get started? I think we're aiming to kick off operations initially in the beginning of 2026. So we'll, be building the site during that time. It won't be fully built out, but we'll be in a position to get started and really begin engaging with companies and startups in the space in early 2026. So if you have a plasma company and want to engage, now is the time to reach out, and we can inform you specifically on how we'll engage and when we'll get started. But we're looking at early 2026 to do that. Okay. Other questions that I'm seeing in the chat here are, uh, we are a US company using plasma for production of sustainable materials. How can I be a part of this ecosystem? So I think G's slides covered that a bit. We can talk about that a bit more. But, if you're an early stage startup and looking for funding and to work within the HAX ecosystem, then please reach out to us. We're always looking at new applications into HAX and making investments. So that's an opportunity that's ongoing all of the time. And we're always eager to talk to startup founders. If you're an innovator in the plasma space and want to perhaps be a part of that ecosystem, we would also love to hear from you, um, because I think there's an opportunity for you to co locate with us and take advantage of some of those resources that way. Okay. Another question is, do we foresee the NJEDA staff having a hands on role at the Princeton facility? Um, I know some of our NJEDA friends are on the call with us today. So, NJEDA is a really fantastic partner to SOSV broadly. They've helped us fund and build this space here in New York, and it's been really successful as a result of their partnership. Um, will also be big supporters of HAX Plasma Forge. I don't expect that we'll have them on site day in and day out, but they're very active in terms of, coming to our location, presenting information about all the various programs that the NJEDA runs to support innovators in the state of New Jersey, providing opportunities like office hours so that you can engage with them and understand what those opportunities are. Um, and they'll definitely be actively supporting us. We talk with the NJEDA on a monthly, if not, weekly basis, really. So they're just a phone call away, and while I don't expect that they'll be on site all the time, they'll be easy to access, and they're really strong partners who will support all the innovation that's going to be happening at HAX Plasma Forge. Okay, I'm just looking at these questions. The one question is, are there plans to explore into plasma applications in the biofield? Is there potential collaboration with IndieBio as well? I think that's a possibility. The application areas that we've outlined uh, are the ones that are top of mind for us, where we've really seen some traction and some actually early results to indicate that those are big opportunity areas. Um, but that said, we're really open to hearing about anyone who's using applications of plasma, and if they're businesses that we really believe in that would make a big impact in the world and do good for the world, then we're certainly open to considering how we invest in them. And if partnering with IndieBio is the best way, we would do that as well. Something we already do at Hacks. Um, I'll ask this question and maybe hand over to G to answer. What kind of access will there be to facilities at PPPL?
Right. So we are constructing the plasma forge in very close to PVPL to collaborate very closely with PVPL, and the details are to be worked out, but the facility access to PVPL will be extended to some of the with approval. but it'll be much easier for the engagement to happen at Plasma Forge, where PVPL scientists can be on site at Plasma Forge, and also the equipment can be borrowed to Plasma Forge. We are also going to have our own equipment to help expedite the plasma research, and we also have on board plasma physicist in the Plasma Forge location.
Awesome. Another question here that perhaps you can take the lead on answering, G, would be, could you compare and contrast what the Plasma Forge facility will look like compared to the Newark facility?
Yeah. So the Newark location, for those of you who've been here, who haven't been here yet, we have a location with equipments and analytics equipments to help expedite the iteration for physical sciences companies. So we have stuff like CNC machines, we have water jets, we have analytics, we have wet labs, we have stuff like SEMs. Plasma Lab will have capabilities that designed to expedite experiments and research in plasma physics. So that will include optical tables that have we have a vacuum, we have high speed cameras, vacuum generators, vacuum. What's the name? Escaped me. We test for low vacuum thrust um, equipments. So that will be a slightly different, but the intent is the same, where is to expedite and speed up the iterations for your research.
Awesome. Okay. Another question is, we've seen quite a few startups that came onto the scene focused on using plasma for nitrogen activation. It seems like it is still quite an expensive technology that has not yet breached 1 mole of nitrous oxide per kilowatt hour. What are the challenges in getting there? Um, well, we have an answer coming from our audience, which is that there are some companies like Nitricity that are already doing so at an industrial scale, which is awesome. Um, I think the promise for plasma here, in terms of catalysis, is quite exciting. Um, there are challenges, but one way that this will get there is because of the tunability of the plasma. The plasma really allows you to actually tune the properties of the catalyst. Like, these are two tools that you can use in combination together. Um, so some of the challenges in getting there would just really be, controlling the selectivity of what the catalyst is doing in terms of activating nitrogen, uh, controlling the type of product mix you get, right? Because yield is going to be really important to determining whether you have an economic process. Um, and then, controlling side products, again, like selectivity and yield are really important. And I think that's where plasma can come in combination with the right catalyst and the right conditions to be able to affect that. Um, I would ask Carlos if maybe you have other thoughts on plasma catalysis and just what is the promise here? What are the magic tricks to being able to do this?
Uh, yes, thank you, Susan. Catalysis is not my expertise, but there's something that we've done in my laboratory at the university is called dusty plasmas, and those are low temperature plasmas that require very low power, but have been shown to have fantastic properties. They were discovered in two ways as part of the semiconductor industry when etching with silane, which is very very toxic, and but the plasma was generating when etching um, silicon wafers, it was generating silicon dioxide, essentially glass beads, and those were levitating and so on. And so now that technology, there it was undesired, but now we're learning how to manipulate dust with plasmas in cold plasmas, very low ionization fraction, um, to create new materials to enable uh, new materials as well, including catalysis. But as I said, it's not exactly my expertise. But you can nucleate and grow new materials from sub-nanometers or nanometers to micrometers or even several micrometers in diameter. And so the applications for plasmas are really vast. And at some point, you have the possibility to combine very high temperature, very high power density plasmas with very low density, very low power density plasmas, sometimes in the same equipment, like it's going to be the case in fusion. Um, and so we need all the expertise, and like Susan said, we want that ecosystem where we can interact with other interested parties that want to work on cold plasmas, on microwave plasmas, on magnetic confinement plasmas, on inertial plasmas, magnetoinertial, etc.
Awesome. A couple more questions that are coming through here. Will you have microwave plasma equipment?
Uh,
Uh,
Carlos, go ahead.
oh no, I I was going to say we use it for measurement. In our particular case, we use it for measurement, but you can also use it to create plasmas. And I'm sorry, Gia. I didn't mean to confuse the, you know, to take your turn. I'll let you answer uh, the rest of the question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you have a better answer than I do. So it's to be determined, and then so one of the things that we do is that we figure out so we the the equipment capabilities and the resources we have in any of the HAX locations are dynamic, and then it needs to be because we simply don't know what companies we have a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. And then so the equipments are dynamic. Then we acquire equipments that's required by the startups for them to proceed. So we do not have microwave equipments now, but this can very well change 3 months from now.
I mean, and this also segues into another question, which is what kind of access will there be to facilities at PBPL? And I think just to G's point, right, the whole purpose of this uh, partnership, right, and the HAX Plasma Forge is really to be able to both accelerate commercialization of some of these plasma-enabled technologies, but also to leverage the expertise at PPPL, right? So part of the partnership will be really a close relationship and close partnership with the folks at PPPL. They've been really fantastic partners to us so far. But what we'll be able to do as we get new companies, right, and invest into them is leverage resources that are at PPPL as well as get equipment directly into HAX Plasma Forge. So, in the case where you need to do an analytic that's only available within the walls of PPPL, this center is really a route to be able to do that without having to go through other complicated methods, and so it will give us access to equipment that we will buy to set up the Center for Success and allow these companies to move quickly, but also access to PPPL where if you have to do a certain experiment or certain measurement, you can go and leverage their equipment to be able to do so. Okay. Other questions? So here's a question that maybe Carlos can help us answer. Um, Clearly, there are many uses for plasma, but let's talk fusion for a moment. Let's say in a decade it's commercialized. It still requires water to make steam, right? And fresh water is a declining resource. And as a central power plant, it's reliant on the grid, which is wonky. What are your thoughts about the bigger picture? I think, Carlos, perhaps you can take a stab, but I'm happy to weigh in as well.
I'm happy to win. So uh, fusion will be used not only for electricity generation, but also for high value heat or high value process heat. Uh, by that I mean uh, heat with very high temperature that is required in industries such as the cement industry or other industries that require very high heat that at the moment is done with fossil fuels. But going back to electricity, you can have a closed cycle for your steam, but you still need cooling. You still need to dump some of the entropy outside your power generation. That doesn't necessarily have to be done. It could be done with another closed cycle, depending on the size of your power plant. But even if it's a large power plant, it can be done with an open cooling line, such as Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant in Maryland. they're right by the bay and they use ocean water, so they don't have to use fresh water. Many power plants actually do that. They don't necessarily have to consume water. They use the water. The only thing that has to be regulated and they have to be mindful of is the thermal pollution. Meaning, if they increase the temperature of the water near uh, where they are, for example, in the bay or in a river, then that may adversely affect the ecosystem. But otherwise, they don't actually have to consume that water. They can use salt water or ocean water, not necessarily fresh water.
Yeah. I mean, the other comment about interconnectivity with the grid, right? I mean, I think part of actually what your particular company is working on might address some of this in terms of how modular it is. Um, I mean, the grid connectivity is an issue we're going to need to solve regardless, but if we can get more modular power sources such that we can have them more distributed, that does address some of the grid interconnectivity issues.
Yes, thank you, Susan. And that is you're correct. That is exactly the part of the market we're addressing with the TerraFusion systems. We're starting with small modular systems between 1 and 10 megawatts electric. What that means is that you could potentially use those in remote locations where transmission lines are hard to come by or you know they're expensive to deploy. Also behind the meter, for example, in data centers where they don't necessarily want one large power plant, but they want multiple units, modular units, so they can have uh, reliability in case one is being serviced or is down. They have the other ones to pick up the slack, and so that is exactly what we are working on. But we're addressing that part of the market first because it's underserved. But we're also planning to address the larger modular systems, 100 megawatts or more in the future.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. Um, a question that's come from the audience is lithium, nitrogen, and plasma are all relevant investment sectors for us, but I do not have a science background. Could someone point me to a resource for understanding the basics of plasma applications? I have a book recommendation, but I will need to dig up the title of the book. But I don't know if anyone here or Carlos has an idea of how people can get a bit up to speed on some of these topics.
Um, the irony is that at least for lithium, um, we're going to use relatively small amounts of it for fusion. So lithium and heavy water are going to be the two main sources for the first generation fusion systems. And just to give you a sense of scale, for the entire state of Maryland, which is where TerraFusion is based at the moment, uh, for more than 6 million people, you can provide all the electricity you need with a backpack full of fuel for a full day. So for a full year, you can carry that fuel in a truck, if you will, and maybe a small semi truck. And so the lithium that you will require is not it's not much. The energy density that you can get from the fuel is enormous, and of course, neither lithium nor deuterium, which is part of heavy water, are radioactive, and the byproduct is helium. For nitrogen, I assume they're referring to uh, um, fertilizer generation or perhaps other uses.
I
I'm sorry,
think
I'm
the
not
question here is
familiar.
more specifically about what kind of resources can non-experts use to try to get the lay of the land in these spaces, and how do they get up to speed on these topics without going to get a PhD in plasma physics?
Sure. Uh, there are reports by the National Academy of Sciences and the Department of Energy that describe, the world of plasma and uses of plasma. I think that will be a good resource to start. Um, some references, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time finding references that are for non-specialists, since all the books that come to mind are textbooks and materials that we use. There's uh, there's actually not that much out there in terms of uh, layperson information for plasmas. But I will start with the National Academy of Sciences um, reports and DOE reports on the outlook and the uh, plans that they have. I can try to find I can find the names of reports and send you the links, Susan, so you can distribute it if need be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the DOE reports are actually a very good idea where they've kind of gone through some of these topics and explained both um, the science, right, at a certain level and the technical requirements, but really also the business opportunities and some of the economics. I think as you're thinking about spinning out a company or really doing something commercial in the plasma space, that's the most important thing. Like, what are the right metrics? And then, what do we really need to do to have a business here? If you can understand that, then you just need to go find yourself an awesome scientist who can actually build the technology. So that's the key. Um, I suppose we'll pause on the Q&A from the chat for just a moment to go over some more stuff about Plasma Forge, which is just, as we've mentioned, Plasma Forge will begin and will kick off starting in January and in the beginning of 2026. Um, that's when we'll really be hitting the ground running, building the site. It'll be a work in progress as we get going, but we'll be able to engage with companies. Um, the plan for Plasma Forge, through the partnership will be to invest into approximately 5 new plasma companies each year. So, we'll be looking at different plasma opportunities, starting right now, looking to make about 5 investments on average a year over the next 5 years for the program, um, and then continuing on after that and continuing to scale it. So, if anyone else is building something in plasma, um, using plasma physics, please definitely talk to us. Share your where your company's at and your startup. Um, and so and yeah, as has just put in the chat, you can get directly in touch with G or myself, so that you can follow up and send us pitch deck and all of that so that we can learn more. Um, okay. Um, I'm just looking at more of the questions that we have here. So, someone's asking, at what point do you bring in the MBAs to figure out power output pricing? Which is a great question. Um, I think the way that we tend to think about the economics of these businesses, uh, starts certainly with, like, the technology and things at the level of, like, the DOE reports, which give us an idea of, we usually start with techno-economic analysis, right? Where you're able to understand the technology, you're able to kind of model out what assumptions drive, the economics of your product. You're initially, of course, making assumptions based on what you know about the technology and what you know to be realistic, like, what is the electricity cost? Things like that type of thing. And based on that, you can start to come up with an initial business model and kind of possible profitability and cost that it will be for you to deliver your product. Um, Once you've sort of built that, and that's really foundational to being able to assess the risk and the possibility of success for the business, um, you would eventually bring in MBAs. But I think honestly, that's oftentimes a bit later. Once you've really started to develop the fundamental tech and the initial founders of the business have begun to engage with the market to really understand, how do we segment this market? How do we understand what opportunities there are and who the customers are? At a little bit of a later stage, I would say after that is when people come in to really do a bit more scenarioing on like energy costs and output pricing and how to think about the pricing. I think that comes in a little bit later towards, you know, after the pre-seed, towards your seed and Series A stage when you really need those people. Okay. Someone is adding for us here that there's something called Plasma Channel in YouTube. That's a good source for non-technical information. Okay, so we've saved the toughest question here for last, which is what is a typical exit strategy for a fusion startup, seeing as the time for profitability and initial capex requirements are very high. Um, I think on this front, definitely That's why we invested into TerraFusion, because they're a company that is at the, pre-seed to seed stage now, but, Carlos and his team has been working on this technology for many years, so they're just spinning it out into a company. Um, it's really the same story also for Princeton Critical Minerals and Sean and his team here. The technology has been developed for a long time in a university setting with a whole different set of resources. And now we're at a point where they're ready to spin out. And so, that gives them a better runway into an exit in a time frame that's reasonable. Especially just speaking about TerraFusion, they're unique in that they believe that they can really get to some pretty compelling energetics and energy creation off of a much lower amount of capital expenditure and initial capital into the company. And that's really because of two reasons, I think. One is that they're much more modular in the way that they're approaching it. And two is just that they've taken it to a further state of development before they spun it out into a company. And so less relying on private markets to be able to fund this. Um, but I would welcome other thoughts from others on the call if you want to weigh in on exit strategies and thinking about this. But I think the point is, there are capital costs to building these businesses, no doubt. But how do you get to proof points and hopefully some monetization early, as Sean and his team are doing by, actually deploying in the field. They've been piloting. Now they're getting into first purchase orders and revenue. And Carlos and team will be doing because they have some technology that they'll be able to monetize at an earlier stage.
Uh, yeah, that's right, Susan. Thank you. If I may add, precisely on that point, on your last point, uh, in the journey to get to a fusion system that can be commercially viable, we have a lot of engineering and development work to do to get there. And in the process, we expect to generate a lot of IP and a lot of potentially monetizable systems. For example, we're working on very high voltage systems, and those are relevant in medicine, in industry, and for power transmission, for ultra high voltage transmission. And so we have to develop expertise because we need it for our system, but we're also exploring the possibility of monetizing it. Another potential monetization for us, even before we get to net energy, is medical isotopes. There's a quite a market, or quite a demand, I should say, for medical isotopes for oncology, for cancer treatment. Those are only made at the moment in just a handful of reactors, fission reactors around the world. And so it's possible to create those medical isotopes, even if you're not producing net energy, but if you have a system that produces some amount of neutrons that is not far from where we are actually. And so there are a lot of opportunities for monetization, but we just have to be careful not to be distracted along the way, not to cause a distraction that will derail us from the ultimate goal.
Okay. I think we've answered all of the questions in the chat. I would be happy to take more in the remaining time that we have. I don't know if G, you would like to say any closing remarks here or any other thoughts that we've missed?
No, I think we covered it all. We're very excited about opening this Plasma Forge in Q1 next year. And for those of you who's interested in reaching out, either a startup or joining a plasma company already, or the ecosystems or suppliers for this plasma ecosystem, let us know. We have our emails, I believe, on the chat. So feel free to reach out to us, and hopefully that we're going to build this plasma ecosystem together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, Thank you all for joining us today. It's been really great having you. And yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from all of you that are doing things in plasma and look forward to continuing this dialogue. Thank you.